Does high-carb diet beats high-fat? You may be surprised to know that the consumption of carbohydrates does not make you gain weight. Many people have been sold on the notion that cutting carbs from their diet and upping their protein intake is the only effective way to lose weight. However, if this were true, wouldn't we be seeing more overweight vegetarians? They eat plenty of beans, rice, bread, and pasta, but none of the animal fats and proteins found in your favorite cuts of meat. Their diet is the polar opposite of the other, and not only do they lose weight but they keep it off. High-carbohydrate diets only offer a short-term solution to weight loss. NIH trial finds high-carb, low-fat better than high-fat, low-carb for losing body fat. New results from a National Institutes of Health diet and weight loss trial strike a blow against the theory that people gain weight because they eat too many carbohydrates. That theory, championed by popular author Gary Taubes, Harvard Medical School professor David Ludwig, Ph.D., and others, contends that a high-carb diet spikes insulin levels, leading to increased fat absorption by cell. Proponents of the theory say the way to lose fat is to eat a low-carb, high-fat diet. The NIH study found the opposite. Subjects on a low-fat but relatively high-sugar diet achieved more fat loss than those on an equal-calorie, low-carb and low-sugar diet. We can definitely reject the claim that carbohydrate restriction is required for body fat loss, wrote lead author Kevin Hall, a star math modeler of nutrition and weight loss at the NIH, in Cell Metabolism. There is more to these diets than meat and carbs. There are scientific facts that support the benefits of both diets. However, those who endorse the low-carbohydrate diet usually aren't taking the whole truth into consideration and will sometimes omit certain facts about their diet of choice. Unless you are a biology professor or chemist, the next paragraph may seem a little overwhelming and hard to grasp, but I want to explain the basic sciences associated with these diets. Try not to think scientifically and simply practice good common sense while reading. The truth should be plain as day. When there is an excess of metabolism fuel in your body, it will produce higher levels of malonyl-CoA. This malonyl-CoA prohibits the process known as carnitine acyltransferase, which also leads to the prevention of acyl-CoA migrating through the cell membrane into the mitochondria. Acetyl-CoA stops thiolase from crossing the membrane, just as NADH stops a list of others. Basically, when too much glucose is built up in the body, the metabolism of fatty acids is completely stopped. In layman's terms, when there is a lot of sugar or carbs in your body, your cells will not use fat to make energy. Instead, it will use the carbs. So as long as your body has carbohydrates to use for energy, the fat simply gets stored. This is a great explanation for why both diets actually work, and the evidence should be pretty clear. Without carbohydrates to use to energize the body, it will use the fats that it has stored up over time instead, so a low-carb diet will make you lose body fat. On the other hand, when there are no fats coming into the body, it will simply burn the carbohydrates and sugars for fuel and store nothing. Therefore, carbohydrates don't make you fat. They simply allow your body to store fat. Only fat will make you fat. Carbohydrates can be stored as fat, however, the body requires massive amounts of energy to do so. This makes the storing of carbohydrates too difficult for the body to actually do unless there are very excessive amounts of carbohydrates to help fuel the body while the process takes place. At any rate, your body should always have at least some level of fat present. You never know when you'll need it. The best rule of thumb for any dieter is to not mix carbohydrates and fats. When you are consuming a lot of both, you will gain a lot of weight. If you consume even moderate amounts of both without a high enough metabolism, your body will still store moderate amounts of fat. However, if you are only consuming one or the other, you will be able to lose a lot of weight and keep it off. This should explain why so many North Americans are obese. North America's diet usually contains both carbohydrates and fats. Though some have high metabolisms and eat in moderation, those who don't are guaranteed to gain weight and be fat. The most important thing to remember is that it is fat, not carbohydrates, that make people fat. Not everyone is fond of the idea of becoming a vegetarian, but there's no reason to be. One simply has to stop eating the carbs and fats together. One classic North American mistake should be obvious. Meat and potatoes. A steak and potato diet is guaranteed to pack on the pounds. There are also candies and other tasty treats that contain a mix of sugars and fats and are best to be avoided altogether. If you stop and think for a moment, you should have no trouble coming up with plenty of examples of this disastrous combination that can be found in your daily diet. If you are looking to lose weight and have considered both diets, you should be better suited now to make your decision. Just remember that low-carb diets can work, but if protein and animal fat are reintroduced to the body, you will store them immediately. This is why anyone who has tried the low-carb approach to dieting has almost always gained the weight back almost as fast as they lost it. Once you make your decision, stick with it. For a step-by-step guide on how to start a high-carb diet, click the link in the description below or visit www.dietsby.com.